changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration to make you simply happy. So here's one of the keys to happiness: doing things that we're afraid of. There's nothing more energizing than overcoming a fear. We had a lot of examples of people overcoming their fears in a book we did a couple of years ago. It was called Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive. And this story in the book, called Braver Than Superman, had a big impact on me. April Knight wrote the story, and she says she had always loved watching Superman and other heroes, but she herself was a shy, frightened little girl. She was afraid of everything. She was afraid of her mother, her teachers, the class bullies, and she didn't change when she grew up. She was still afraid of her mother, and now she was afraid of her boss and some bullies at work. Her fears started to make her life narrower and narrower. She had to muster up courage just to take a bus to the mall, or to eat at a restaurant alone, or even to wear the color red. She was just fading away, withdrawing from life. She said her greatest fear was failure. What if she tried to do something and she failed? What if people laughed at her? And then she had an epiphany. She had had enough of this tiny, quiet life where she didn't do anything. She would deliberately do something, even if she was bound to fail. That was her decision. She would face failure head on, and she would see what failure felt like. So she stopped wearing beige, and she started wearing red. She had always been a secret artist, painting but never showing anyone her paintings. So she rented a gallery, and she put her paintings on display. But here's what happened, according to her. The first week, only 2 people came into the gallery, and they laughed at my paintings. The second week, a woman offered me $20 for the frame on one of my paintings. She didn't want the picture, only the frame. The third week, I closed the gallery. I failed, and I didn't die. My failure wasn't on the 6 o'clock news. I survived. So she tried again a year later. She painted better paintings, and she rented a gallery in a better location. And this time, she sold 80 paintings just in the first month. So then April did something very cool. She used the money that she made from the paintings to go to Australia by herself. This was the woman who had been afraid to take a bus to the mall, and now she was flying halfway around the world alone. She learned that each time she did something scary and survived it, whether it was a success or a failure, it energized her to keep going. She stopped saying no, and she started saying yes to as many things as possible, no matter how much they were outside her comfort zone. One way she found to do this was through volunteer work, which makes a lot of sense, because if you join a volunteer organization, then they'll just start asking you to do things. You don't even have to force yourself to come up with new ideas. You just have to say yes to whatever they offer to you. And that volunteer work led to April agreeing to work in a mission in New Mexico for 3 months, which she ended up loving so much that she stayed there for 2 years. April reports on some of the other things that she did. She says she went to a rodeo, and when they asked people to volunteer to ride the wild burros in a race, she said yes, even though she was twice as old as the other riders, and she had no idea how to ride a stubborn, ornery burro. Her burro ended up turning in circles. It went backwards at one point, and she came in the very last in the race. But she didn't care, because now her success was not defined by acing something. It was just defined by trying something. So she kept doing things that most of us have never done. She rode an elephant at the circus. She drove a stagecoach at an Old West frontier town. And she spent 3 weeks panning for gold in Colorado. This woman, who had been afraid to go to the mall, was now seeking adventure, and she was happily failing over and over again. The 3 weeks that she panned for gold, she found all of $36 worth of gold in 3 weeks. She says she did most of these things alone, and her friends who stay at home and don't want to go with her say that she is so strong and independent and that they'd never be as brave. In fact, when she wrote her story, April was on her way to Hawaii to go snorkeling. She grew up in Kansas and she had never learned to swim, and she had always had a fear of water, but she said she was going, happily anticipating overcoming another one of her fears. I'm Amy Newmark. I want to thank you for listening to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast today. Come back tomorrow for a sneak preview of our new book for mothers. It will be a very personal episode and a new way for you to view your mother, or if you are a mother, a way for you to get a pat on the back for all that you do. If you want to read some more tips for energizing your life from the book I mentioned today, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive, please go to our website, chickensoup.com.